You're listening to Building a Creative Life. I'm Pam Vale, an artist and writer. This podcast is about the small, often overlooked ways creativity shows up in real life, in what we notice and in what we choose to respond to. Here you'll find conversations and reflections shaped by curiosity, not instruction. No expectations, nothing to master. Just room to pay attention and trust where that leads. Today I'm joined by Nicole Fronek. Nicole is known by many of her clients simply as the coach. Over the past 2 decades, she has worked with professionals and organizations including Chevron, HP, Citigroup, and Marriott International, helping people think more clearly about their work, their communication, and the reputations they build over time. It's a conversation about attention and the craft of communication. And I hope you'll stay with us through the end, where I'll share a few reflections on what lingered with me after talking with Nicole. Well, welcome, Nicole. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Pam.
I'm grateful that you're here, and I was doing a little research on what you do, and I'm really excited. There's several topics. I normally talk about creativity and creative expression, and I find it very interesting aligning that with the work that you do. And I would love it if you could just give a little background on what you do so people know who you are and where we're starting from.
Yes, so I focus on transformational career and business development, and that's both with individuals as well as organizations. Also, I have a really strong background in project management. So, from all of those different experiences, scaling back all the way from interior design much earlier in my life, I thought I would certainly publish a book based on all the experiences I've had, simply for the fact that I was getting asked similar questions from colleagues and clients, and I thought, once I see a pattern, I know that there's a market. So created the book Corporate Coach Approach, a systematic guide to career development. And in there, it provides my 20 years of experience in under 200 pages. So
Wow.
it's a very consolidated format for that very reason. So it can be what you need at the moment you need it. And you can learn a little bit in all the different aspects from my experience and maybe alleviate some heartburn you might have had. So that was the goal and the objective.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm very excited to talk about your book. I'm very intrigued by the interior design part of your history. So I definitely see where like creativity comes in for you there. It's funny because I saw your headshot and it looked very corporate, and I read a little bit about what you do. But then once I started like really looking at your brand and your social media and your website, there's such a like I don't know, not like whimsical, but like a theatrical sort of
Okay.
component to your personal branding, which I think is awesome and very accessible for people. And so I would love to talk a little bit about personal branding first, just because I think that it's, well, number one, it's so important today, especially with all of the noise on social media and the way people are marketing. And if you could just maybe give like a little overview on that and talk a little bit about like the importance of that.
Yes, and it is extremely an interesting topic that I think a lot of folks don't focus on, and they see it as a luxury, but really, I do have an entire chapter on that, chapter one, and it talks about the intentional messaging and the steps that you take routinely, whether you're aware or not. You are forming your personal brand with every interaction, and it's different than a reputation. There's a lot of confusion between the two. But with personal brand, you're guiding that messaging. It's what you would like others to perceive you as. Whereas reputation just comes naturally from other people's perceptions and opinion. So it's really important that whatever you're doing, saying, showcasing, that you're messaging your product, if you will, your brand, to reflect what you would like others to think of you. And I really appreciate your comments about the theatrical and the whimsical because of my artistic background. It really blends well to be kind of a jack of all trades when I'm working with different clients and different colleagues, from furniture manufacturing all the way through hospitality, even into the corporate sector. Having that creative mindset has helped me solution different things that maybe engineers or more business analyst individuals wouldn't think through that kind of creative space or aspect before. So it's been a nice way to kind of build that into the career. But yeah, it's been a lot of twists and turns and a lot of different forks in the road, but just saying yes at different opportunities has led me on this really interesting journey. So not what you would expect in a career development book or coaching session, which I think is really what sets me apart from others in that industry. So I'm really curious about the other questions that you have.
I think your separation of reputation and your brand is something that I don't hear people talking about a lot, and I feel like, especially a lot of newer creatives that are looking to, whether it's looking to monetize what they're doing or start a small business, or whether they're writers. It's very easy for that to get muddied and not, to not see the separation in that. And I think that's a really valuable takeaway. And I also love that the branding section is like your first, you said it's the first chapter.
First chapter.
So
Yep.
it shows
And
like, okay, you got to do it.
you got to do it, and you can read the book in any order. It's
Oh, I
very
love
nice in
that.
that regard, but it can be first and foremost because it can set the tone in the way you present your resume, how you work with your manager or your clients, how you're presenting yourself in meetings, how you're not just presenting, but how you're an audience member, how you're responding to the presenter. Are you setting them up for success? Are you putting them in a hot spot? Are you allowing them to save face in a difficult conversation? Or are you giving them some extra hand? Are the lights too bright? Is the room too loud? Can you just do something in the background where they're going to see you as an ally or an advocate and go, oh, they're going to take notice? But that's part of your brand. So those are all the things that you're doing. And if you start at the beginning, if you will, but it's never too late. And even if you haven't given much thought to your personal brand before you've heard this session today, really take it to heart because it's so important. And you really want to guide that perception and guide that impression of how you come across and how you're working with others. So it's a really interesting topic, and you're right. I'm really banging the personal brand drum because I don't hear a lot about it, and I become discouraged when folks say, "Oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have time. I don't have time to network. I don't have time for my brand." But you don't realize the implications of not making the time. It's going to be done for you, and that's going to be much harder to correct. So it's better to be proactive and do so right at the onset as soon as you are aware of what it is.
And you illustrated that it's important in all areas. It's not just having a business. It's,
Hmm.
presenting yourself in any form, really. So
And
it's
what's really nice,
universal.
yeah, it's universal in a professional business, any way that you're doing it, or any engagement, because you're you're setting an expectation that others then can rely upon. And when I find people know what to expect from you, they're not focusing in the background on noise, to your point of noise. They can just focus on the conversation and the topics. They don't have to worry about how you're going to treat them, how you're going to respond, what's going to happen after. They already understand and have that knowledge and that familiarity. So now we can just go right to a valuable conversation because I don't have to worry about those other supplemental items.
Wow. Yeah, and you don't think about that influence, that it has on the relationship. It has all
Mhm.
these subtle things that you don't even realize it's doing.
Right. Yep, very subtle, but it's there. And I've had so many people say, I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like we have a good chemistry, or I really feel like you understand me, or oh, no one's really understood that before. And they don't realize I'm taking notice of their favorite coffee drink, what they're allergic to, their children's names, their dogs' names, their best time of day. There's a whole segment on that by Daniel Pink. Um, about your best time of day. And it's really important, just like when you were young, you knew when to go to mom, you knew when to go to dad, or vice versa, or when not to. And if you translate that into your adult life, when to go to your client or your customer or your colleague at their best time of day, you're going to get your best response. And people will notice, and they won't be able to quite understand it's that nuance, but they'll just
Yep.
say, oh, she really gets me, she really understands, and I love that about her. And so I know I can trust our conversations, she's going to have the best thing in mind at the moment, because we're already formed that trust and that kind of continuity in the way that we engage with one another.
What is a way that you can like sort of learn someone's best time of day?
Immediately how they respond. Are they in a hurry? Are they pressed? Are they hungry? Do they look unengaged? Do they look uninterested? Or are they hyper? Are they moving? Are they energetic? So kind of how they're responding in their body language, but also in their word choice. And maybe also if they're constantly declining a meeting at a certain time of day, or they're in the meeting, but you can see they're triple tasking and not doing that very well, but they're attempting to do so. So there are those, again, subtle, that's a great word, very subtle clues, but you have to be aware and take notice. And so really just ask the question, or you can just be quite direct if you haven't figured it out. What is the best time of day for you where you're productive? Because I don't want to interrupt that block for you. Or is there a particular day of the week that is less call heavy where I could sneak in a 15-20 minute conversation? So if you're showcasing, setting the expectation, this is what I need, and to do so I want the best of you, but I want to give you that luxury of telling me when is the best time. So those are a few different tips and tricks.
Yeah, and that I think that can be applied in any relationship too.
Anyway,
I
yeah,
mean,
oh, 100%. Oh, exactly. I am not a morning bird. I really am not. I've tried. It is just not my
no.
personality. You can't change your personality just like you cannot change your soft skills, right? You have to mitigate your weaknesses with your strengths. And so I do that by saying, "Hey, I am going to be 100% available for you in the early afternoon. Whatever you need from me, early afternoon is gonna be fantastic. When I have that luxury, of course.
Hmm.
If it's something where those are supporting me, then I can do so. If I'm supporting them, the client always wins. You know, the customer's always right. Smile. But you have to really be thoughtful about when can we have the best exchange and conversation. And if they're really, they want to say yes, they do. But if they're having three obligations and commitments at the same time, you're really not going to get a high quality from any of them. So you're better off having that dedicated moment and then keeping it brief, being very concise. I'm going to just take 15 minutes because I'm going to solve this issue for you, or we're going to work through this item. If you don't have 15 minutes, when do you have 15 minutes? If you only have 5 minutes, I will give you as much historical information as I can right at the onset. But these are kind of creative, back to your brand, right? Creative living and such. You really want to think, how can I creatively solve the challenges, or work with them where they can be creative, they can be focused, and I'm adding value to their day, not taking it, because that's going to be part of your brand, where folks rely on you for helping them and putting wind at their back and removing barriers and obstacles. These are all buzzwords you hear in corporate, but if you can really do that subtly and continuous, where they see it and they notice it, but it's so subtle that it's comfortable. It's not going to be seen as abrasive or intrusive, but really, oh, she's asking because she wants to be successful with me in this way.
Yes. So obviously you've had a lot of experience, so you have a lot of personal experience to draw on. But was this something that just came natural to you? Were you always like, I don't know, intuitive, or however you would describe it, or aware?
I would say yes, and kind of a funny story, but I'm the youngest of four, and my mother remarried, and they were not going to have any children. No surprise. Here I come. And because of that, they said very early on, we're old, we're tired, take care of yourself, we'll get back to you. And they're fantastic parents. My book is actually dedicated to my late father, but I had to learn very early on that being the youngest of four at a much different generation, they were already well into their teens when I came along. I had the advantage of observing cause and effect, what you did and what the implications were. So I was a very observant child. And this was before the days of internet. You couldn't just look it up. You couldn't surf the web. You had to make these impressions and go to the library or ask whomever you could. But I constantly was encouraged to look it up, find it out, make your observations. And they were really raising me in a more adult fashion because they were older. My parents were older in their life. So they really had this more adult approach with me. I was not really ever a child. I feel like I kind of became the event coordinator at a very early age and helped with trip planning and took messages for my father's business and supported my mother at all her PTA events. So I kind of had a very non-traditional childhood, I would say, in that sense. But yeah, very early on, I made these observations and these impressions, and I thought, ooh, that did not work out well for that person. Let me try something different. So yes, I would say it was an early mindset, and it has carried me really well into my adult years. And a lot of friends and family and colleagues just said, wow, you're so mature for your age. I really thought you were much older just from having these conversations with you, but I really had that head start. It was very different from my friends and peers.
And it's, what a gift later on. And then the fact that you can share it with other people and help them
Yeah.
where they didn't have that experience.
Right. And the moniker the coach was given to me more or less by the colleagues I was mentoring and relationships I was building with clients because I didn't quite have the patience level for a teacher, but I had the motivational,
I
I'm
love
honest,
that.
I had the motivational qualities and the expertise experience from observations to say, from a coaching perspective, here's the scenarios I foresee. That way you can think ahead, and then I'll support you and give you feedback afterwards. And it became a very reciprocated because they were sharing with me my kind of inside network, my circle was giving me feedback in return, and we were growing together. But we were doing so in a manner where I wasn't giving them instruction, I wasn't giving them the play by play, but I was sharing with them what I foresee. If you move here, they're going to move here. And then come back and tell me if we were right. And then we can course correct and we can plan ahead the next time. And that just kind of became the process. And they're like, all right, thanks, coach. And I thought, oh. And then everyone started calling me coach. And it just kind of organically happened. So my brand was coaching, but I didn't have the title to go with it until, oh, maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. So it was a very nice course for my brand, and it then had a kind of an official designation, so it was nice. It was a nice way to go forward, and that's where the title of the book came from, and the way I set it up inside, just basically how folks have responded, and the way I've worked with others when I provide executive coaching or kind of career mapping.
Well, and it shows you when you stay true to um, when you find your voice on whatever your topic is and you stay true to it, like it can happen organically like that, that you find this, your, not persona, but your brand or, your direction. And then it can inform all these other things. Like you said, it set up how the book is laid out, or, it seems like your natural style of interaction just took you down the right path, which is
Yeah.
beautiful. And it doesn't have to be forced. Like, if you listen and you are aware, then like that can happen.
Yeah, you have to be aware, and also I've had so many different careers and I've worked with so many different clients in so many different industries. You quickly learn where you thrive, what you enjoy, what you don't. And a lot of the times folks will say, I don't know what I want to do. I don't, even college students, I help them with their resumes quite frequently, and I don't know where I want to go yet. That's fine. It's very rare that folks do. And I thought I did. I thought, oh, I'm going to be an interior designer right out of high school. Boom. And here I go. And I'm like, wow, this starving artist thing is real. Like, I don't know how much longer I could do this. I absolutely love it. But you learn very quickly where you can thrive and survive both, right? And
Mm.
so knowing what you don't care for is just as important, and you have to take note of that. And you can't just change course every month. Like, you have to spend some time to really see, do I just not like it because it's uncomfortable, or I don't care for it because it really doesn't allow me to showcase my strengths and my value I can bring. So you have to look for those cues. But you learn from every experience. You just don't want to stay too long in the wrong position or the wrong spot, because that's just going to hinder your creativity and stifle your growth. So you have to, there's always a balance. You have to figure out, how long is this going to work the best, and when is it time to move? And sometimes you are told, you're voluntold, it's time to move, it's time to go,
Hmm.
for whatever reason. We're shuffling, we're growing, we're restructuring, whatever the case might be. I've heard all the terms, I'm sure you have too. But there's really different cues that you will get over your career from clients, from everybody, and you have to really listen to them and take note. They can't be disregarded, or not for
Absolutely.
long. You
No,
can
because it
ignore
will
it, but
show
it's
up.
gonna happen. So, Be proactive and go on the offense where you can.
Absolutely. With your book and your writing process, um, what did that look like for you? Did you write longhand? Did you write in a computer? Did you have an outline? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. It was an outline, which is my brand. It really helps me have a path forward. The blank page is very detrimental for a lot of folks. So I always try to have at least have a template, have a start. And because I was really tuning into the different patterns of questions I was receiving, I thought, okay, those could be chapters. And the chapters are short. Like I said, it's a very consolidated read. So I was focusing on the patterns that were very frequent and then writing the outline where every chapter is exactly the same. You have a story at the beginning that like a compare and contrast, something that worked really well, something that didn't, and what I learned from it, and kind of the cues that you can take from those stories about understanding the patterns that you're seeing. And then at the very end, I showcase a list of best practices. So the 10 top items from that chapter. If you only have a minute, then you can go to that page and at least, oh, what are the highlights? So it really is set up to allow you to choose your own adventure, if you will. And that's a copyrighted statement, so I'm not claiming ownership of it, but it's the best way to describe it.
I love that people can drop in too, because I feel
Yes.
like sometimes, especially with a topic that might be a little overwhelming for some people to like think about their brand or their, themselves on a bigger scale like that. Having like nuggets of information or accessible information is really important.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I've had some feedback already where it seems a little bit more academic or a little bit more elevated or sophisticated because of the word choice. And I did do my graduate studies in the UK, so there is that flavor, and that I've lived abroad, so I have more of a, I would say, more of a UK flair, and it was the way that it's written, but it's written that way for clarity and just to be concise as well. So even though it feels like some folks feel it's a more heavy academic read, if you can understand the structure of it is so that you have that information so it can be accessible. And then if you want to read more heavily, there's a lot of references in there and you can go and read other books by other folks. But I tried to make it a, a textbook read for function, but with my stories folded in so you can learn more about me and understand how I came to those tips and techniques, like how I've decided what works well and what doesn't. And they are from tested and tried and observations throughout the years that I've supported different clients, whether it's a mom and pop or a Fortune 10, all in between.
Very similar ways of working with them or what you find from
Yeah,
them.
yes, and they're not that much different. It really is. Everybody has an objective, everybody has a need, and a business is looking for financial stability. They want to grow and they want to have the perks and the fun times and all of that, but in the end, a business is to have a financial economical structure. So if you can figure out ways to incorporate your skills to grow the business and think of it as I'm not just an employee, but I'm an advocate, I'm supporting their needs, they need me as much as I need them, then you can go forward and utilize those different strengths and skills that you have. But if you do so with that mindset of how can I help somebody be their best today, or how can I look for cues where somebody's struggling and I can lend a hand. And it's really a nice way to grow your career organically, but also have other opportunities you might not have had otherwise. And it doesn't take much more effort. You're already doing the work, you're already there. So
Right.
why not make it the best of both for everyone and get something out of it, not just a paycheck, but enjoy it a little bit, right?
Right, right. And I love, for me personally, I love pattern. And so I love that you said the chapters are set up, the same. And I think that that removes a barrier for some people where they have to like, you're already learning, like you're reading to learn with your book. And so by removing that barrier where they have an expectation and they already understand what's the pattern is of your book, I think that's a really beautiful gift because I think it makes it more accessible. It makes it easier to digest. You don't have to focus as much on the way it looks or the mechanics or how it's set up. You're getting the information, I think, clearer would be
Yes.
my thought.
And to your point of how the book came about with the outline, I started from there, and then because I had that structure, it made it easier for me to remember what I wanted to include, because you're writing page after page after page and it's all on the screen and it starts to blur, and you have to be careful. Have I used this word 85 times? So this is really something I always focus on, is these word dupes, and I want to be economical with my writing, and really have a flavor, but not write too. Say what you want to say and then be done saying it. I actually wanted the book to be shorter, but I was like, no, it's too short. Now it's just a pamphlet. Oh, okay. I said, but I'm all about productivity and efficiency. They said, yes, but your readers want to know about you. They want to know how you arrived at this information. I said, okay, fair. So I wasn't just disregarding my editor and my business partner and my friends that were supporting my project, but really, I didn't have a strict schedule on writing because I'm working full time, maintaining the business. It was just when the thoughts were, when I felt good and it was a really productive day, I would just write longer. But having that structure and having that outline really helped to create the book to be concise and not have to go back and be very heavily edited. So that's, if you have an editor, they would appreciate that.
I'm sure they would. But that, it actually leads me into like something I'm very fascinated about that I read about you, and you just kind of touched on it. Um, I have a hard time editing myself, and I don't mean editing as far as like punctuation and all of that. Like I am a wordy person when I write, and so I have a hard time condensing. And my husband was a police officer, and he would have to take like pages of a report and condense it into like a paragraph or a sentence or two. And I was always so amazed and in awe by that, because I always felt, maybe because my background is more of being an artist, like I just, there were like things I felt like needed to be in there, or I couldn't let them go. And so you had just said economical writing, is that what you call it? And so I would I would love to learn a little bit more about that. I think it's amazing. I see the value in it. I don't know if I can do it, but I want to know about it.
You can do it. You can do it 100%. So this is a fantastic segue because it's really near and dear. It's chapter 3, Write Like a Journalist. And I had a journalism course in my undergrad study, and the light bulb moment, oh my goodness, she said, first day, we walk in the class, we sit down, and I was older in my career when I went back to school for the 18th time, moves in life and all of the things. But she sat down and said, I want you to write as if every word has a monetary value. And I thought, because she was an old school journalist, she worked for LA Times. And there, at that point, there was a cost for every word that was printed. Now, fast forward today, social media and post, and oh my goodness, there's 1,000 stats about it would cost you $1 million to write 10 posts a week, or whatever the case might be. There's so much information, but what does your reader need to know? What is going to benefit from them? What do you need from them in return? And if you're adding all these flourishes, and I know because I experimented because people would come to my desk and say, Nicole, just what do you need? I don't have time to read your email. And I thought, but I've spent so much time crafting this beautiful email because I want you to know this and that and the other. And like, but that happened 2 weeks ago. What do I need to know right now? And I thought, oh, okay, well, I need this and I need that. Great, next time just write that. And I thought, okay, I will. So if you need something from somebody, you can't beat around the bush and be subtle. You have to say, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, here's when we need it by, and here's what you need to do to take action. And you can do so in a few sentences, of course, but read that chapter. I'd be really interested for your feedback. But if you write as if every word has a value, you actually improve your clarity because you're going to keep the attention of the reader. If you add all those flourishes that you love as an artistic personality, they might not, you might lose them altogether, and they're not even going to read all of your wonderful work because they're not in it for a fiction read. They're in it for a nonfiction, and that's a much different. If you're in a fiction, you want to be entertained. You need those details. You need the flourishes and the layers and the background. But when you're writing nonfiction and material that is for a specific purpose or topic, I need to know what I need to know right now. So
I
there's a
love
really good
that.
book. There's a really nice book by Stephen King. It's on writing. It's his memoir, and he talks about his process of editing and the way that he's grown in his writing about just telling the story. And he had some really interesting tidbits in there about how it's hard to kill your darlings, they say, right?
Yeah.
But if you take out as well as and just put and, all right, like all of these different small editing techniques. But if you want to talk about the day and the sun and the moon and the tide and everything, does it have to do with the story? Or is it just because you feel like that needs to be included? So you really have to think about, is it necessary or is it just going to add noise to my message?
That's awesome. Now I have to read chapter three. Three
Yes,
and three.
please.
Three's my lucky number too. So maybe there's like
Okay, well,
some
there
like
you go.
cosmic connection there.
Yes, and because it's been top of mind for you, it is really, like you said, cosmic because it's meant to be, it's something you need right now. So it's really, it just completely changed my communication style. And I really take it to heart in all that I do. And I'll write the email and then I'll go, ooh, can I write that shorter? Can I get rid of a word or pronouns? Oh my goodness, every email you get has 85 pronouns. Do I need that many pronouns? Can you just say it cleaner and clearer and crisper and get the message across and do it quick? And I've had executives come back to me and say, I replied to your email because I know I have time. And I thought, okay. And if that doesn't sell you on writing economically, I don't know what will.
So I guess that kind of leads into the next topic that I'm interested in exploring with you because I really want to hear your view on AI. And I feel like, it's such a sensitive subject with creatives in
Yeah.
general. I also have a art licensing business, so it's not going to affect me as much. But I know a lot of younger people coming up in visual arts that are mass produced are going to be highly affected by it. Um, it's not going anywhere. I feel like we need to make friends with it, and so I would love to take a minute and like hear your view on it just because of your varied background, and I think you probably have a lot of experience dealing with this.
I do, and it's been top of many conversations. I just
Mm.
had one yesterday about it as well. And I have the same sentiment. It is not going anywhere. It is here. You're better off understanding, adopting, and realizing how it can work for you as an executive assistant, if you will, versus working against you. And there are some companies that are going to run leaner because they don't need as many folks for data entry or for documentation and such. But if you have the certain soft skills where you have relationship building and client care and the human emotional component of understanding how to support others, your role, nobody's economic proof. We have to be reasonable about that. But if your skill set is so varied and so unique and they can pull extra value. I've had roles where they say, oh, that role is now redundant or this part of your skill set isn't needed any longer, but we're going to now focus on this because you can do that. So really, if you showcase in your brand the different layers and components and your just willingness to try and say yes and give it a shot, that is not something AI can replicate yet. Maybe way in the future, maybe not in our lifetime. But right now, the conversation is really top of mind. The hardest thing I'm seeing for folks is just securing a job because applying for things now, I've had folks come to me and say, "Oh, you were 600 resumes for one job." I thought, "Oh my goodness, these can't be real applicants or applicants that are actually qualified." But there's all of these AI programs in the background just spitting out resumes left and right because now cover letter, I push a button. Before people wouldn't apply because I'm not going to take the time to do a cover letter. But now AI can do it for you, so why not? I'll do it. It's quick. But AI is again not going anywhere. Learn it, comfortable and familiar, but it is a great resource. You just have to be very cognate with copywriting and trademarking and that, of course. But if you just need an outline, you can put, I am trying to write an email for this person in this industry, and I'd like to get the following points across. Can you set me up with a draft? Or can you create an outline that can help me fill in the blanks? So it can give you a starting point. And that can happen with anything. Oh, I'm looking to add a certain tab to my website. In which order is it most industry standard appropriate? Or how would have the best response be to the social media post? What hashtags are the most influential? There's different ways of utilizing it in a creative way without infringing on any any licensing restrictions, but just be very cautious and aware that it can be used for good, not evil. You just have to become more familiar and having these conversations and figuring out tips and tricks and ways to use it. And I've peppered it into the book just to be, um, I guess, appropriate to today's market and today's industry. There are some pointers in there, but I I'm really curious to see also the strides that it makes, and it's also been very quick because it's new. I think it will taper down a little bit, and it will start to I guess have a bit of a plane, but then it will probably spike again. So much with anything, even when emails and internet became very instrumental. We had one computer in our office and everyone would take turns using it. And now you can walk around with your phone and everyone's got computers. No big deal. It's very common. But back then, if someone, the first time I saw somebody on their earpiece talking, I thought, person's talking to themselves, what's happening?
Right.
I didn't even realize it was a technology yet. I was not in that industry, that sector at the time. So it was really curious. But yeah, it's been very good conversation, and it's every single day. I don't think a day goes by that AI is not a talking point.
Absolutely. And I think that you bring up so many great points about how, like, the balance of using it, or that it's not so black and white. You know, it's not like all or nothing. It can be helpful in different aspects.
Yeah, and it's saved me a lot of time, and it's
Hmm.
allowed me to do more with the time that I have because I'm not. Why? It's already out there. Why reinvent the wheel? Learn from somebody else. Where has this person been successful with that? And what industry would be best for this type of layout or this presentation pitch? Or there's so many different things that you can look up. Or when you're trip planning to get the best cost on things,
Best.
right? Like there's so many prompts that you can write, and the more specific your prompt, and the more
Yes.
specific the information you're providing, you're going to get the best out of it. So really being considerate about how to utilize it for your brand or your need can really be beneficial if you think of it that way. And then you won't be so anxious about it. You'll
Hmm.
find it more of a companion, if you will, to help you with your daily tasks and needs.
Right. It's like you have control.
Yeah, but fact check it. It's not always going to be 100%, right? There's like,
Exactly.
oh, the
Oh my
internet
gosh.
told me. Okay, well, great. But you have to really, you have to experiment a little bit, but just use your best judgment. And if it
Hmm.
feels strange, stop, right? And what you put in is going to be there forever. It's not going anywhere. You can't just delete a post and it mysteriously disappears. It's still there somewhere. So if you're putting items in content, make sure it's not proprietary. Make sure it's not covered by an NDA or some kind of contractual agreement. Remove names, retract and redact. Like be really thoughtful what you're putting in because that is now going to be public record, if you will.
That's
And that
great.
was
Great
very
advice.
hard part of the book is being really careful not to we didn't use it at all because you have to be very careful about copyright later and synopsis, and even though it's your words, if you're putting your words in the computer, now it's no longer could be seen as your words because
Wow.
who's first? We don't know. So you have to be really thoughtful when you're doing creative work that it is in fact your work and that you preserve it properly with all of your trademarking and copyrights and licensing. But you can redact and be vague and still get some information that can be supportive for you.
Right. And definitely get uh, like the foundation, like, you know, like you
Yes.
said, like an outline or a draft or something. It really, it saves time, definitely.
Yeah. No,
how did
definitely.
how did you come up with your two horse productions
Yes, my
name?
business partner and I are both horses. That's our zodiac symbol, and it is
Oh,
the year of
okay.
the horse. So it's
Yes, it
very
is.
exciting. It's our year, woo! And we really have always formed this kind of I've got your back, you've got mine, I'm supporting you, you're supporting me. I'll do this direction, you do that direction, and let's report back and compare our findings. So we kind of formed this yin and yang
Hmm.
organically. And we just thought, oh, it'd be really cool if we kind of reflected that. And at the time in undergrad, I was doing a mass media course and I had to create a company. I had to create a script. And we were kind of brainstorming at lunch. We went to a cafe and thought we were very fancy writers. This is years ago, before I authored the book. And we thought, okay, what do we like? What do we do? What reflects us? And we both have a lot of ambition and energy. And we were like, oh, we're kind of like workhorses and we're both horses. I'm like, oh. So that's how it came about. And we then partnered with a really good friend of ours, Daniel James. He's a local fine artist and one of the first three of Harley Davidson to be licensed. And we kind of gave him our concept and thought, oh, this is what we really love. And so we have this collaborative relationship with him on this art project. And so we went back and forth, and he helped us with our logo and then also with the cover art for the book. So he said, "Oh, I love working with you too because you give me such clean, clear feedback. I know
It's your
what we need."
economical writing.
Yes, an economical writing. And I don't have to fish because some people will say, oh, can you make me a logo? I like horses. Ah, right. I had this whole PowerPoint for him and notes and comments. And I thought, wow, I don't even, this is fantastic. Like, you're going to spoil me. You're going to ruin me for others. But it makes the process easier. And now I've set the expectations. They know what to build. They know how long it's going to take. Then they can say, yes, I can do it. Versus, ooh, I don't know how hard of a client you're going to be. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit you in. Instead, they know exactly what is going to be asked of them. And so when we came back and said, hey, I've written a book, we'd really like you to support the cover art, no problem, 100%. Right? Versus, oh, let me think, let me look, like I put you in my schedule. People are busy. And if they know from your brand and what to expect, they can immediately say yes. And that is going to be, of course, very beneficial to you. But yeah, so it's the year of the horse. I'm very excited. And we're going to be focusing on that very heavily on our social media and really just taking advantage of that extra horsepower for our every 12-year mark.
Is that what it is? Yeah, it's every.
Every 12 years,
Yeah,
yep.
okay, that's
You,
funny.
yep.
I love it. I think that's great. Um, how does creativity show up in other areas of your life, like other than your work?
Maybe trying new ways to incorporate recipes into a very hectic schedule. I would love to have all of these fantastic, 6-hour grandmother cooking over the stove in Italy, but it's just not realistic. So I'm always looking for recipes that I can eat healthy, but also be very intrigued about learning about the culture as well, because I'm a forever student, so I really enjoy that. And then if we find a recipe we really love, like, oh, put it on the list, maybe we can travel there one day. So I'm always looking for ways to incorporate that. Also, how to look for movies and TV shows where it's something I'm interested in, where I can also grow and learn about that industry and not just surf and kind of zone out, unless you need that for the moment. You can't be productive 24/7. I understand that, but I'm certainly not going to watch a 3-hour movie unless it has something in there that I'm going to benefit from or learn something, right? So I'm always looking for creative ways to make the most of the 24-hour period that we have. And then also, because of my love for interior design, that's never going to go away. I'm always looking for architecture and artwork and buildings and things that we could explore in more detail. And because we have this kind of artistic circle here in the Black Hills, it's been really nice to learn from them in a more creative, the way that they approach their projects. And they say, oh, I really need to develop my business, but I don't want to do the paperwork. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do the contracts. It is a requirement if you're going to grow in your business. And I understand you just want to make art all day. You're an artist. I get that. But you have to market, you have to advertise, you have to promote, you have to do these events, and you can hire someone if you have the financial means to do so. But if you're going to run a business as an artist, then you need to understand these elements as well. So I'm looking for ways to encourage and motivate them in a non-traditional corporate way, but having them understand it's for the good of what they'd like to accomplish. So creatively, I'm looking to work with creative individuals to bring solutions to them that they're going to respond to and say, okay, that makes sense. Yes, okay, we'll do that. I see the value. So not just, you're going to write a document and it's going to be so much fun. Like, yeah, whatever, Nicole.
Right.
But this gives you an opportunity to select your font and your colors and the layout and the orientation and the scale and the proportion. And so whatever we're working on, I try to utilize their terminology, their industry language to, so I'm learning more about cars and motorcycles and different things because I'm working with these clients and these organizations that's their brand, that's their industry. So I have to creatively change my mindset, my approach to get the best from them and build that relationship that I understand what they're trying to achieve. And not, you just can't be standardized. You have to tailor to your audience and tailor to that industry.
And I guess it goes back to what we started the conversation with mindset, and that you're just kind of flipping the switch. You're flipping the mindset. As you know, one of the things I just heard in what you were talking about was how you help them see that it's part of their creation. Like it's not separate from it, you know, that it's part of the process. So if they choose to look at it that way, like
Yes.
it's like it's definitely a mindset thing. If they choose to see it that way, that it can be creative. Those things. I don't like doing any of that. I don't want to do social media. I don't want to, do the marketing and the promotion and all that, but I have flipped it so that it's myself in there, or the parts of it that I can infuse creativity in makes
Yes,
it
and then
better.
it's yeah, and then it's your brand. You are
Yeah.
intentionally messaging what you would like others to see you as and to expect from you, and then that way they understand: is this a podcast? Is this a segment? Is this an interview? Whatever the case might be, that is going to benefit me. Am I going to listen to it? Because how many people are there's so much content out there. There are so many influencers and channels and things that you are competing against. So you really need to dial in. Ooh, this is the person I'm speaking to. This is the audience I'm looking for. And then you stay true to that brand, that audience, and would have more success there. You can't do everything. You can't be
No.
everywhere. So what can you do well, and what's going to reflect your brand? And learning when to step back, when to wait, when to pause, when to sit down, when to stand up, that's part of my coaching. Like I can't just be we have to do it. We have to do it. I need to listen for their cues as well. Is it the right time for them? Is it the right moment? Am I going to irritate them, or am I going to motivate? These are the differences. So you have to be subtle in understanding when do you approach somebody
Yeah.
about something. If it's not urgent, don't make it urgent. If it is urgent, that's a different story. But if it's not, if there's
Yeah.
not a hard, fast deadline, give them some time and room to think through what is going to serve my brand, my creative process. Everyone has their own process, whether they think they're creative or not. You are. I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at that." So we're not focusing on what you're not good on. We're just going to have an experience, and we're going to just try it. And then after they're so quiet the whole time. I do a workshop where you are familiar with Kintsugi,
Mm-hmm.
the app. Okay,
Yes.
so I had a actual workshop where we were learning to think through problem solving. So I had them crack the plates, I had them fill it with paint, which was gold, and the room was still. There wasn't one word.
I
Everyone
just
was
got
so
chills.
involved. Everyone was so involved with filling their cracks and making these beautiful portraits. And then they'd look up like, I'm creative. They were so excited. And I thought, yes, see, but you are already telling yourself you're not. And instead, let's not focus on what you're not. Let's focus on just this moment together, this experience, what the challenge is. And they had great stories from it. They really enjoyed it. So it was a workshop in the creative mindset on how you're approaching challenges, whether it's with a stakeholder or a project or some financial obligation. Like there's more than one way. There could be
Yep.
three or four or five, but if you're already telling yourself, I can't or I shouldn't, you're
That's it.
not going to get anywhere, right? It's going to be really challenging. So that's unexpected, right? As you said, my portrait's very corporate. I look very structured. And that is a corporate, and you would expect that. But there's all these layers, and I'm really trying to adapt to the different needs of that person at that moment. And they just said, "Oh, we have these lunch and learns are every month, and we're looking for something different." And I thought, okay. And so I had read a book by Amy Herman. It was called Fixed. Fantastic book. And she talks about this process of there was a gentleman who filled the cracks of a basketball court with gold for a school because they didn't have enough funds to replace the concrete or the asphalt. And so he filled it with gold and made this whole abstract work of art. And I thought, so creative. That's so fantastic. And I apologize, I don't know his name, but it's in that book. And I thought, okay, so I'm looking for ways and techniques that I can translate into a corporate workshop. Have you ever gone to a corporate workshop and painted a broken plate? I haven't. And let me tell you, my friends and I had so much fun breaking the plates and super
Mhm.
gluing it and making it ready and covered with glue. So next time we wear some gloves, right? We have to be safety first, wear your PPE. But we had such a good time preparing for the workshop as well. So I'm trying to incorporate creative moments where if I'm asking somebody for their time, they're going to get something in return, not just a transaction of, oh, I put in for a course and I took the course. That's not going to serve any of us well. So there's always different ways to be creative. And I was so excited to do this session with you today because I don't often get this specific ask to think creatively. I
Mhm.
am, but it's not the scope of the conversation. So this has been really enjoyable today.
Thank you. I have really enjoyed it as well, and I will put all your contact information in the show notes and information about your book and all of that. But
Thank you.
is there anything else that you want to add that we didn't cover?
I'm just curious, when you decided to start having this conversation, are you looking, what is your criteria when you're looking for folks to interview or speak with? And is it part of a larger collective? Is there going to be a book from you or something that we can look forward to?
Oh, what a lovely question. I never get asked questions. I actually did write a book, and it was just
Oh,
sent off to my publisher last week.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
so
excited.
there will be more about that. But
Okay.
for me, I kind of think everybody is creative in some manner, and I loved hearing you talk about. I hear all the time because I've taught creative classes for many years in the past, and I've heard, you know, 1,000 times I'm not creative. Not, you know, people saying that they're not creative. And, you know, your example of just showing them a workshop, you know, that changes people's lives. Like that rewrites stories in their head that they've carried with them. Many, like most people that I've talked to, can pinpoint when they were shut down, you know, like when their creative spark was dimmed. Maybe it was you know, something somebody said, or an embarrassment, or a failure that, or something they thought was a failure. But so for me, you know, as far as people on my podcast and even the writing that I do on Substack, I just want everybody to have access to this. Like I feel like this is an accessible tool towards self-discovery, towards success in their life, towards, you know, personal development, and just it doesn't have to be art. Like I, you know, I love talking to writers. I love what you do. I love that you bring your creative background in it. You know, I've talked to architects and PR people and a lot of artists, you know, a lot of people who think that they're not creative, but then we talk and they're like, wait a minute, you know, I bake
Huh.
or I garden or I whatever, you know. So, yeah, I appreciate that question. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm
Yeah,
very excited. Congratulations on your forthcoming book.
thank
That
you.
is a huge undertaking. I know.
Huge, huge. Yeah. But
And
now I'm like,
writing
maybe I should go back and like take out words, but maybe my next one.
Yeah, I love it. See,
Yeah.
I've inspired, I've motivated. Yay, hooray.
Exactly, exactly. Well,
But you say,
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say quickly that you
Yeah.
mentioned the folks say, oh, but someone they had a failure in their life. And
Mm.
that is something to not disregard. You can fail, but fail fast. Learn from it,
Yes.
move on. Don't keep thinking about that because it isn't going to serve you. Reflect, yes, but then go forward. So when folks say, oh, but I failed or this and that, okay, but you did. And what did you learn? Okay, so now we're going to go forward. Forget that. And so that has been giving people the confidence and feeling empowered. It's okay. It's okay to do that, but let's move on. And then people say, oh, okay. And there's a lot of self-disclosure when you're talking with folks. I can't or I won't or I did because of this and that. And I don't know if we've just become apologetic from different things. I'm not sure, but I'm always telling my clients, what are you apologizing for? Did you hurt me? Did something happen? I just, okay, then just remove that from your vocabulary. Let's use assertive. Let's just say, if you did something, yes, apologize. Take responsibility. But if you're just apologizing for something you feel you're weak at, until you said that, I didn't even realize that you felt you were weak. And now I'm going to be focused on that and not your strength. And that's going to be now in the back of my mind while we speak. So maybe I'm not listening. So instead, like, So there's so many different conversation points. But when people fail, say, okay, I acknowledge that, you've acknowledged it. It's fail fast. Let's move forward. So
That's beautiful. And so like forgiving and kind to ourselves, right?
yes, we have to, this is all we have, right? You've got to
Yeah.
make the most of it. So I really think it's fantastic what you're doing. I look forward to your book, and so wonderful to be here today. Thank you so much, Pam.
Thank you, Nicole. And I will hopefully have another chance to talk to you in the future. And good
Let's
luck
make
with
one
your
happen.
book. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things that stayed with me after this conversation with Nicole is how much of our lives are shaped by the small signals we send without really thinking about them. Nicole talked about the subtle cues people notice, the way trust forms quietly, not through big declarations, but through consistency, through clarity, through how someone carries themselves in everyday moments. That idea feels connected to creativity in a way we don't always talk about. When people hear the word creativity, they often picture making something, a painting, a book, a piece of music, something tangible and visible. But creativity also lives inside attention. It lives in how carefully someone chooses their words and how they shape a sentence so it actually says what they mean. Nicole had a line that I loved. She said, to write as if every word has monetary value. And there's something beautiful about that idea, just about awareness. Because when you start paying attention to words like that, communication becomes something closer to art. And that's really what this conversation opened up for me. The realization that creativity isn't separate from professional life, it's woven throughout it. It's there in the way someone approaches a problem, in the way they respond to change, in the way they decide what matters enough to keep and what needs to be edited out. Even our conversation about AI circled back to that same idea. Technology may change tools and workflows, but the human part of the equation is still attention. And I think that's part of what building a creative life is really about. Not about adding more to our lives, but noticing what's already there. The creativity that shows up in places we might not have recognized before. Sometimes it's in art, and sometimes it's in work. Sometimes simply in the care someone takes with a sentence. Thank you for listening and spending this time with us. Thank you for being here. I hope something from today's conversation stays with you in a quiet way. If this episode felt meaningful, you're welcome to follow the podcast or pass it along to someone who might enjoy it. Until next time.